practice of pulling appliances and checking aluminum wire connections during panel replacements is a controversial one. Some argue for checking, citing safety as the primary reason. Aluminum wire is known to be more prone to oxidation and loosening over time, which can increase the risk of fires and electrical hazards. Furthermore, some jurisdictions may require the inspection and correction of aluminum wiring during electrical upgrades. For some homeowners, the knowledge that their aluminum wire has been checked can provide peace of mind. On the other hand, others argue against checking the wire connections as unnecessary, and that in many cases, aluminum wire connections may be secure and may not need to be checked. Pulling appliances and checking connections can be a time-consuming process, especially in kitchens with large cooking appliances. Some experts argue that the risk of a fire from loose aluminum wire connections is relatively low, especially if the connections were properly made in the first place. Still, others argue that checking aluminum wire connections during panel replacements goes beyond the scope of an electrician's responsibility. Currently, there is no industry-wide standard for checking aluminum wire connections during panel replacements. However, the National Fire Protection Association, or NFPA, and the International Association of Electrical Inspectors, or IE, recommend against the practice. NFPA 70, the National Electrical Code, does not require the inspection of aluminum wire connections during panel replacements. The International Association of Electrical Inspectors does not recommend the routine pulling of appliances and checking of aluminum wire connections during panel replacements. While checking aluminum wire connections during panel replacements may provide some peace of mind, it is generally not considered a necessary or standard practice. Electricians should weigh the potential benefits and risks before deciding whether to perform this task. Here's a more in-depth look at the arguments involved. Considering arguments for checking aluminum wire, the first argument is that it is a matter of safety. Aluminum wiring, especially older types, is more susceptible to oxidation than copper. This oxidation creates a high resistance layer that can lead to overheating, posing a fire hazard. Aluminum also expands and contracts more than copper with temperature changes. This can cause connections to loosen over time, further increasing resistance and the risk of overheating. Secondly, it can be a code compliance issue. While the National Electrical Code doesn't mandate inspecting existing aluminum wiring during a panel upgrade, some local jurisdictions might have stricter requirements. It's always best to check with the local building department to ensure compliance. Thirdly, it can bring a greater sense of peace of mind. For homeowners, especially those with older homes with aluminum wiring, knowing that the connections have been checked and properly treated can provide peace of mind. It's a proactive measure to reduce potential risks. Now, looking at the arguments against checking the aluminum wire, the first argument is that it might be unnecessary. If the aluminum wire connections were properly installed initially using appropriate connectors and antioxidant compounds, they may remain safe and reliable for many years. Disturbing them unnecessarily could introduce new potential problems. Secondly, it could be time-consuming. Pulling out appliances, especially large ones like stoves and refrigerators, can be time-consuming and difficult. It adds to the overall cost of the panel replacement and can inconvenience the homeowner. Thirdly, it might be unwarranted. Some electrical experts believe that if the connections are properly made and maintained, the risk of failure is relatively low. Focusing on proper initial installation and periodic inspection is often considered sufficient. Fourthly, it is an overreach of duty. Some electricians argue that their responsibility during a panel replacement is to ensure the new panel is safely and correctly installed. Inspecting and re-terminating existing branch circuit wiring, especially outside the immediate panel area, goes beyond their contractual obligations. Now let's discuss the industry standards a bit more. The National Electrical Code, or NEC, is a widely adopted standard for safe electrical installations. As mentioned earlier, the NEC doesn't specifically require inspecting aluminum wire connections during panel replacements. However, Section 110.14b addresses the compatibility and proper termination of conductors. It emphasizes the importance of using connectors and termination methods suitable for the specific conductors being used, whether aluminum or copper. The National Fire Protection Association, or NFPA, publishes the NEC. The NFPA generally doesn't recommend routine inspections of existing wiring unless there are specific concerns or indications of a problem. The International Association of Electrical Inspectors, or IE, is another influential organization in the electrical industry. The IE also doesn't advocate for the routine inspection of aluminum wire connections during panel replacements. They emphasize the importance of proper initial installation and ongoing maintenance. When dealing with aluminum wiring, it's crucial to use the correct materials and techniques. Firstly, use connectors that are specifically designed and listed for use with aluminum conductors. These connectors are typically marked with the letters ALCU, indicating they are suitable for both aluminum and copper conductors. Secondly, use an antioxidant compound, also known as joint compound, on the aluminum conductors before making connections. This compound helps to prevent oxidation and improve conductivity. Thirdly, torque the connections to the manufacturer's specifications using a calibrated torque wrench. Over-tightening or under-tightening can lead to loose connections and overheating. Fourthly, visually inspect the connections periodically for signs of corrosion, overheating, or looseness. If any problems are detected, correct them immediately. Here are some best practices for aluminum wire connections. Firstly, perform a visual inspection. Look for signs of corrosion, discoloration, or damage to the wire insulation. Secondly, check the tightness of screws. Use a screwdriver to ensure that all screws are tight but not over-tightened. Thirdly, apply antioxidant compound. If the connection shows signs of corrosion, clean it with a wire brush and apply a fresh coat of antioxidant compound. Fourthly, consider pigtailing. If you are concerned about the reliability of the aluminum wire connections, you can pigtail them to copper conductors using approved connectors. Pigtailing involves connecting a short length of copper wire to the aluminum wire and then connecting the copper wire to the device or appliance. This creates a more reliable connection and reduces the risk of corrosion. Some additional considerations include the age of the wiring. Older aluminum wiring, installed before the mid-1970s, is more prone to problems than newer wiring. This is because older aluminum alloys were more susceptible to corrosion and expansion. If you have older aluminum wiring, it is especially important to have it inspected by a qualified electrician. Another consideration is the type of connections. Some types of connections, such as twist-on wire connectors, are not suitable for use with aluminum wiring. These connectors can loosen over time and create a fire hazard. Use only connectors that are specifically designed for use with aluminum wiring. Another consideration is the location of the wiring. Aluminum wiring that is located in damp or corrosive environments is more likely to corrode. If you have aluminum wiring in these areas, it is especially important to have it inspected regularly. When making decisions, consider the specific situation. There is no one-size-fits-all answer to the question of whether to check aluminum wire connections during a panel replacement. The decision should be based on the specific circumstances, including the age and condition of the wiring, the type of connections, and the homeowner's concerns. Consult with a qualified electrician. If you are not comfortable working with electrical wiring, or if you have any concerns about the safety of your aluminum wiring, consult with a qualified electrician. A qualified electrician can inspect your wiring, identify any potential problems, and recommend appropriate solutions. Remember that electrical work can be dangerous. Always take precautions to protect yourself from electric shock. Turn off the power to the circuit before working on any electrical wiring. Use insulated tools and wear safety glasses. If you are not comfortable working with electricity, hire a qualified electrician. In conclusion, the decision of whether to check aluminum wire connections during a panel replacement is a complex one with valid arguments on both sides. There's no definitive requirement in the National Electrical Code, or NEC, to do so, but local regulations might vary. The age and condition of the existing wiring, the homeowner's concerns, and the electrician's professional judgment all play a role in the decision-making process. Prioritizing safety and following best practices for aluminum wiring are always paramount. Proper installation with compatible connectors and antioxidant compounds, along with periodic inspections, can help ensure reliable and safe electrical connections. If any doubts exist, consulting a qualified electrician is always recommended to make an informed decision that aligns with safety standards and specific circumstances.